What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Games Recap.
Good morning, everybody. Enjoy that coffee, but take a minute to sit with us and listen to us talk about everything that happened in the game industry yesterday. It's very important. Brandon, take over for a moment. I'm going to turn on this light.
Okay. So, as Larry is exiting the screen, this is Brandon Pham, and of course, my co-host Larry Charles is joining us, as always, every day at 10 a.m. Pacific time. So you are catching us either on live Twitch, obviously. If you are missing us, you can go to our YouTube account, obviously. And let me actually throw those graphics up so that we can give ourselves a chance. So as we are going through today's news, the great thing is that let's go over the first topic, right?
Sure.
I was browsing in my comfort zone, the restroom.
On the toilet. Scrolling.
And I saw Bernie Sanders, I guess, collecting votes, right? The best way to put it. Where he's calling for unionization within the game industry. We don't like going political. Yeah. I really am the worst at it because I'm not very educated on that front.
Yeah, this topic specifically is less about politics and more so about like
game politics.
Sure. Well,
game rights.
Well, I mean, it's not like we're saying these are candidates we endorse or this is one person's political stance versus another.
Yeah.
We're just actually unpacking an issue that is a hot button in politics right now.
Right.
But it's extremely relevant to what we're doing here on the platform.
Yes.
Yeah.
So whatever the millennial person is on the Bernie Sanders team, very smart, right? They clued them in, like, what is games? And then they're like, these are interactive things that you play on these
Here are
systems,
the footnotes for Bernie.
computers, Flappy Birds and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But what's a great benefit to it all, whether you are for or against it, it nationalizes the game industry and its problems.
Sure.
Way bigger than before, because this topic was like homebrew, kind of starting with GDC, Game Workers Unite.
Yeah,
it's very grassroots, and this, if anything, puts it on the front page on what is going on with the game industry, and everybody is familiar with games enough to understand, like Fortnite. My kids, everybody is playing. It's a formidable industry. It's with streaming, with it actually being like an avenue for game developers out there to actually do. It's a perfect time to give an inside look of, hey, people in the industry aren't exactly really happy about what's going on.
Yeah, we've kind of been able to stay to ourselves for decades of game development, but now, I mean, we've become cultural phenomenon through some of the products that people are playing that come from the game industry. Then also EA loot box fiasco, and now spawns like governments around the world are stepping in to try to regulate or moderate what's happening in games, game development, and game sales. Obviously, we have another topic kind of rising to the top as well, which is, just labor unions in general, but now focus on the game industry. Bernie Sanders is taking a public stand to say I support the game industry if they plan on unionizing, because I think that they should.
Let me switch to some articles here that we're actually browsing through here. So pull some graphics.
All right.
Bam! So
let's read that tweet.
Yeah. So what was he saying? So the video game industry, and I'll highlight it here, made $43 billion in revenue last year.
Hey,
yes,
congrats,
we
guys.
did.
Yeah,
we did. I didn't know you were a billionaire,
we
Larry.
sure did generate the money.
I didn't know we were billionaires. Workers responsible for that profit deserves to collectively bargain as part of a union.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see unions like IATSE and the broader game workers movement organizing such workers. He didn't tweet at them correctly.
I think that was a shout at Game Workers Unite. So.
Yeah. So of course, if you were a part of GDUX, Game Dev Unchained, we've had Kanema on, and they've grown, right? Yeah. They are the front runners, and it's great to kind of have this friendly partnership with them to kind of blow this up. But this is huge. This is on Gamasutra. If you don't like game news, this is on in the front for The Verge, which is, I believe, another tech kind of company.
Yeah, it's like The Wired with a new paint job.
Right.
The Wired. I think it's just Wired with a new paint job.
Yeah. So ITCE, the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees. I guess we belong to that part. It's like just actors in general.
Sure.
Is this the voice acting guild or something?
Repeat the name one more time.
The International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees.
I don't know for sure because I thought that our voice actors were SAG.
Yeah.
I think that they're SAG, but I don't know for sure. But I think they're SAG union.
Yeah. Well, too often workers in the entertainment industry are underpaid, overworked because they are so passionate about their crafts. By joining together and negotiating as a group, we can make our workplaces better.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm behind it.
Yeah.
100%.
I mean, it's really hard to argue against that, right? Obviously, for developers to make great games, they have to be in a comfortable place. If you're a long-time listener, long-time watcher of games, ReCAP, game developers are struggling right now, and they're very distracted, and they're constantly moving around, and teams are at the tail end of these development cycles breaking up and then making new friends. Yeah. And we're in this constant cycle where there's only a few companies that actually have a stable core that allows them to just create and not have to worry about their jobs being lost or relocation and all that stuff.
It just feels irresponsibly silly of us as game developers to be in a position where our industry is making more than movies and music combined. And as an outsider to both of the music industry and the movies industry, I know that everyone there is like sagged up or like, ASCAP or BMI. Like they have not just their like companies that represent them in collecting their royalties, but they collectively bargain as a union. Even in television, Lost was ruined after so many years because all the writers striked, and they tried to you can just have anybody write, just pull in. They tried to do that game industry shit that happens to us. And there's a clear point where like that series itself falls off as far as content delivery went. People weren't engaged, the writing was bad, and they didn't know where to go with that franchise. I'm not using Lost to try to explain how I feel about games, but I'm just using it as a reference to say that like everyone else who's making entertainment media has their shit together. But we're making the most, right? We have probably the biggest audience both on the consumer end, but also on the people involved in making it. I think there's more game developers around the world than people who create movies.
And we're trending right now. Everybody wants a piece of the pie right now. Yeah. Fortnite being a phenomenon. We've been seeing them in football games. It's like a part of the culture, and at least in like the conversations. And this is a better time finally to kind of educate people on what we're about, but also to give an insight of what's going on with this industry that everybody seems to know a little bit about.
Yeah. There's no excuse at this point, I would say, for us to not take a serious look industry-wide about unionization, and not just piece by piece by piece. Like, even though that's the approach that we have to do right now because there's still a lot of resistance internally. Yeah. Like, we really do need to, if we actually care, if we're not just going to do the thoughts and prayers to the people who lost their jobs, right? If we actually care about our brothers and sisters who are out there developing games and the safety and the security and the assurances that you as an employee should have, at least in a mutually beneficial work relationship, if we like are worth our salt and we actually give a shit, it's time to have that serious talk as an industry, take the companies out of it and just be the employees and say, look, get your gripes out. Let's talk about pros and cons and let's unionize. Let's either all be for it or all be against it or whatever. But if you're all against it, it's just like saying, look, we're just going to continue to allow the risk of making games be the reasons why neckties can rape and pillage when it comes down to royalty reciprocity.
And we're not asking everybody to get $1 million or something like that. But if you're making such a huge 90% profit margin, I feel like a good part of that should go back to employees. But even before bonus and all this stuff, we just want to cut the cutting. Yeah. And a lot of that is just before the game ships or any of that, or a little drop in their quarterly statements, that their instant answer to that is to to just lay off a bunch of people to kind of equalize their profit margins.
Smoke and mirrors on earnings calls is more important than integrity.
Yes.
Is what it seems like is happening. Like,
Right.
oh, hey, no, look, we saved X many millions of dollars this year.
Yeah.
Clap, 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 clap,
Yeah,
clap.
yeah, yeah.
How did they do it? Let's look into it. Oh, they laid off 4 entire teams after those teams finished their games.
Yes.
And then next year they'll worry about how they're going to restock and then make a new game.
Yes.
But for this earnings call, I'm going to shine my brass star.
Yes. There needs to be a cost when they're looking at that margin and looking at a bunch of developers and like have some accountability.
Yeah.
We're going to lay off 400 people. Is that going to save us money? Oh, no. Okay, let's look at other solutions. And if you don't have that in place right now, which we don't, it's going to continue being that way where they're like, oh, we need $400 million or like $100 million. Let's cut up all these people. So until that happens, and it's going to be a while before we stabilize.
Sure.
And even get to the part where the voice actors are to ask for a bonus. Maybe part of that is the conversation that we need to have. But I feel like we need to stop the cutting first before we even ask for like a part of the profits. And what I see with these studios trying to come up with solutions where people are like so disengaged, or at least arguing amongst ourselves as colleagues, like, is unionization the way to go? What other solutions are there to kind of have employers kind of take a second look and not see that as an option? Like, nothing else has been proposed, right?
Well, here's the funny thing. This is very idealistic, pie in the sky.
Yeah.
If you ran an ethical business, I think that unionization wouldn't necessarily be a problem. Like, if you were honest about your employment situation, if you were paying people well, if you were giving the people the things that they would have been asking for in a union, but demanding with force, right? Because a union, to me, like, there's a lot of leverage involved in the negotiations, right? It's like, look, we need this to be in a mutually beneficial employment situation, and if we don't get it, then we leave. And that threat of we leaving or we will take action keeps employers in line, which is, it's unfortunate that that's the way that business is done. So again, pie in the sky scenario, if you were just like, hey, look, we value you as an employee. What do you feel like you're worth? Well, here's what we can afford. Can we meet in the middle? Okay, we agree that this salary for you is going to be mutually beneficial. Yes, okay, cool. Here's your vacation. Here's your this. Here's your that. Everything's set up where both companies and the employees and the company are mutually, where the employee and the employer are in a mutually beneficial work relationship. The need for a union, in my eyes, is like much less. And that's the thing, is that, like, I feel like we are run, like, our corporate level, especially publicly traded companies, they're not looking for mutual benefit. They're looking for as much profit as possible, no matter how, no matter when, no matter why. Like, cut employees, cool, profit goes up. Games finished. Okay, so these people, like, aren't working on a product right away. All right, well, we got to cut them for those 3 months. Hey, loot boxes are getting in trouble now. Oh no, we're not going to call it loot boxes now. We're going to call it surprise mechanics. It's, if the goal was mutual benefit and you had the balls to actually stand behind that and say, I'm going to run my business ethically no matter what, you'd have a much different scenario about people talking about unions.
Yeah.
I think unions is the workers' way of trying to fix the problem. But we want to see what the employer's way of fixing the problem is. And that's what we're not seeing. We're not seeing them, this is generalizing, but we're not seeing them as a whole come down and say, like, hey, you know, we don't have shit if we don't have workers. Let's actually respect that and try to start fixing these problems. Some companies, I'll say, are doing, like, by leaps and bounds, making sure that their employees are taken care of. Netflix, shining example, I believe, of, like, how you should, like, value the people that work for you.
Oh, yeah.
But not everyone can afford the Netflix model, especially when you want to pay, like, that new C-level exec $26 million just to join you.
Yes. There's definitely a miscommunication, a disconnect between the employee and employee. Right. And every time we sign on a contract at any new studio, there's always that at-will clause, right? And I think it stems from that, where everything becomes an issue, because the idea is that I can quit whenever I want to as an employee, which I have the rights to, but their counterpart to that is like, I can fire you at any point that we want to. Which, is that equal though? Really? I mean, it is at a certain point, but there is a bigger responsibility on the employer side to kind of make sure that, because I'm only responsible for myself versus them, they're responsible for hundreds of people.
Sure. I'll say if you look at it on paper, they both have the option of terminating the relationship whenever they want.
Yeah.
So that dynamic makes it fair.
Yeah.
But the risks involved completely different, right? Like individual quitting their job is like they have cut themselves off from their income stream, or at least their primary income stream.
Right.
And a company cutting off an employee has not done the same.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we let go of an employee. We've reduced our risk by 0.5% because we have X many employees, right? So we only it's the ratio of what the effect is not the same. But, being able to quit both or fire whenever you want, actually just on paper, that I would say is fair.
And so I think a lot of it's just, I think employers at this point are finally not ignoring it as much. I feel like it's being brought up more and more, with Riot being in the headlines every 2 weeks or so, and Bernie Sanders calling out labor unionization. And if anything, this will start the trend with politicians trying to kind of jump on that, because now they're trying to get the young votes and all that. It's like, Fortnite, how do we fit
There's
Fortnite?
going to be a lot of politicians wearing their Halo 4
t-shirts.
t-shirts
It's
all
like,
of a sudden.
hey, my kid loves Fortnite. I play it with all the time. Look at this dance, right? So I can only see that as a benefit, getting some outside voices out there, and it's hard to kind of argue against that as like a politician or someone looking to get some votes, right? How can you argue for the corporations in that type of situation? And instantly you have this huge demographic finally paying attention to what you're saying, because now you're games. What about games? Oh, you feel this way? Yeah, that sounds about fair. So I think this is the beginning of something that could only amplify that message of, and we're not asking as developers to be like, how much money did you make on this game? Can I have 10% of that and equally spread among all employees that worked on the game, which I think is really fair. But the first part of the conversation goes with, like, if you have a hiring salary cap for me, you have to have a firing severance package for me as well, which is very, very fair. And you got to have it on paper, and you got to have it ready to go. Because just by having that kind of tangent savings account for firing will give them a clear number indication of, like, if we fire 5 people, that's about point something $1 million or something.
Then we have to, or 5 top level.
5 top levels. They love stat sheets, they love Excel sheets, make it easier on themselves. But I think that's very fair. It's like, hey, if you want to fire me, fine. Then I at least can expect 3 to 6 months worth of severances. Yeah,
I think when I look at our situation overall, and I don't know where to put blame, but I do know where problems are. Yeah. And one of the problems that I keep continuously being vocal on is, like, a lot of publicly traded companies go through these types of things where the focus is profit at all costs, growth at all costs. And the risk, though, is like each year you have a company that's taking a chance on doing what they can to make profits grow. And as a shareholder, you're going to be disappointed if they don't show up and say, like, hey, our dividends have gone up this year, right? So I'm the kind of person where, like, I'm now at the age and, like, living through all this, I have no problem investing in something that's like, look, we're going to try to be stable, but we're going to try to achieve growth. And here's our, like, 5-year plan. I don't listen to anybody who has a 10-year plan, but like a 3 to 5 year plan is about the most I'll allow somebody to try to project their business strategies before I tune them out altogether, because you don't know 10 years from now, especially in tech and game development. But what I'm saying here is, like, instead of trying to make a mad dash to profit every single year, doing whatever it takes, that's adding to the volatility of the game industry. That's adding to the turmoil that you're going to suffer through trying to achieve that goal of chasing black every single year. If you go for sustainability and tell me, like, hey, Larry, I'll make sure that if you invest in us, we will be here 10 years from now. We'll be here 20 years from now because we are bringing in key talent. We're keeping key talent happy. We're making great products. We're nurturing our community. We're investing in our growth in a smart way. And we're not going to just cut whatever. Basically, there's a certain point in time where you run out of fat to trim, so then you start trimming muscle. You start trimming muscle, you are deteriorating your company.
Yeah. And I think that's a great point there. Yeah. Like, we worked at Activision before. Activision, out of all the layoffs, this past year was the biggest one, aside from maybe Telltale because that was the most impactful. But Activision laid off 800 people. But soon after doing that in their quarterly earnings call, they recognized the fact that this can have a long-term effect, and we'll deal with it later type of attitude. It's like, let's get through this 3 months, get the profits, and then we'll deal with the long-term effect. And what has happened the last year? Like Blizzard is...
You're going to hear that same thing on the next earnings call.
Sure.
Like, hey, look, this is still...
But let's analyze what's happening. You know, between us, a lot of Blizzard employees, right? Leaving unsatisfied, scared of what the Activision apocalypse hammered down type of approach is. Blizzard themselves as a culture is, I feel, slowly diminishing, where they ship until they're ready. That's completely gone. They axed all their lower performing franchises. Heroes of the Storm
was one.
WoW, they're like downsizing that a bit.
The WoW team is smaller, sure.
The Overwatch team is, yes, more inflated, but now they're concentrating more on Overwatch 2, or what's the next step of Overwatch. The esports league, you know, they hired this guy from ESPN or something like that actually handles sports, and a lot of people are unsatisfied with that. Really high departures over at Blizzard, who were like the heads and been there for like 10 plus years, spearheading the esports initiative. They're gone. So, and aside from that, the Call of Duty franchises, you know, are kind of crumbling underneath them, defaulting back to 2 studios from 3 studios, where every 3-year cycle there's a new Call of Duty from a different studio. Now it's just cycling between Infinity Ward and Treyarch, which is extra pressure, right, on those 2 studios to kind of deliver a game, a AAA game every 2 years now. Like, that's ridiculous.
Well, here's what's worse about that.
And people are going to leave.
We can jump on that specifically. We're also going into a console transition where new tech is coming out, higher fidelity, bigger expectations.
It's going to take more time.
30% less time available to make the game now. So
insane.
Man, imagine what kind of offering you can look for.
And we've been on those 3-year cycles. And you need every second
all
of those.
3 years.
Yeah, and to expect these 2 studios to finally like get their shit together, like only Kojima can pull this off. Right? It's crazy what they're expecting, and we're seeing Activision as a whole suffering already, mere months after their 800 people layoff, because the sentiment within the studio isn't like, oh shit, Papa Bear is really taking care of business, I'm safe. It's like, oh man, like no matter what we do with record profits, this is not a place that I can stay and like hang up my coat and be comfortable with, because that's the message they sent to everybody that is laid off and isn't laid off, which is that's like completely disrespect to what we think and how we feel as game developers. How can you rally the troops and good enough is their model, right? Obviously it means way differently than now.
As we talk about these things, like you have 2 halves of your brain. Half of my brain goes into thinking, where the hell did we get off track? Like, there was a point in time where everything was about sustainability and growth at the same time, right? Like when my dad was a kid, he was part of that generation of work 35 years at the plant, get your gold watch, your turkey, and this great severance package when you leave. Yeah, that's gone. That's gone. And I'm trying to figure out, to
be fair, it's all industries that's happening, but at a fast rate. Game industry is like 3 years at a company maximum, right? But you're trying to figure out like where exactly we are.
It's like clearly there was just a mindset switch that just not just companies, individuals, everyone has gone into some sort of like a get rich quick mentality. We don't buy stocks to hold on to for 20, 30 years because we're happy that we're going to see dividends every month. That's probably like the lowest popular strategy. You know what the big strategies are? Day trading, short term, buy because I know it's going to go up, then dump. I have no care or concern or relation to these companies other than I want to see them grow. So I'm going to listen to the earnings call, and I'm going to use my votes to vote for the thing that I think is going to lead to profit sooner, faster, so I can get mine
next 2 months,
dump.
get my vacation home.
And so that trickles down into, we know that our shareholders are here just for profit. So in order to have our stock value,
I'm always looking
where our personal, my 401k is, a lot of it is tied to like my 3% Activision stock in my bank or in my trading account right now.
Yeah.
Like, as in, like, because I'm a top C-level exec, I have a huge amount of stock in this company.
Right.
So I'm going to lose hundreds of millions of dollars if people start dumping our stock. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to focus on getting our company more profit, more growth at any cost.
Yeah.
I just don't understand.
Well, it trickles down
hurts.
to the employees.
It hurts.
At the beginning of my career, I always looked at like, oh, I'm looking to stay here, looking around, getting used to the area around me, and really pitching my tent and looking for long-term value, right?
Yeah.
Near my end of my career, I'm still working on games, obviously, but like officially working for companies, I was looking at day one, how long can I be here until I have to look? And I'm always constantly looking at what's out there, any new job opportunities. So that's my mind frame completely switched, because I know how these bigger corporation companies work. They work the same way, which trains me. I have to think the same way. You know, how can I be okay in the immediate future? Like,
everything here is
nothing is
expendable.
past this game at best. And lately it's like, are we going to even finish the game? And am I going to be here by the end of the game? It's not like I'll work on this game and then leave. It's like, is it going to survive its whole cycle without any delays? If I start seeing signs of trouble, is that 8 months in, 9 months in? So I'm constantly stressed at work, thinking about these issues, because these are the problems that Papa Bear is telling us. Like, this is the reality. Get used to it, because you have no power, right?
Man, it should be different. So,
it should be different.
Let's get unionized, guys, and let's at least try to make things mutually beneficial again.
Yeah.
Because if you have that, you'd be surprised how happy, how long, and how interested your employees will be at continuing to make things happen.
Yeah.
I'm just going to throw that out
there.
Yeah,
and thank you, Indie Game Business, for joining in. He made like a pretty good commentary saying that, yes, most people are going to leave. Right, the veterans, but a new wave of young developers waiting to get in line. But we have to encourage the next gen of developers to kind of stand up and not accept toxic workplaces, because if everyone thinks the solution, and I think this is what at the corporate head level they hope is like, oh, we have an influx of applications from students that are eager to work overtime less, it's going to solve our issues. Like, no, you idiots. That's why your games are not being shipped, because they need experience to know what to avoid. And if you're constantly relying on young developers kind of keeping your gravy train going, you're going to crash real soon, which is happening. I think in a lot of these studios, there's this already a weird mix of senior developers working each other for the first time, but there's a heavy reliance on young developers to kind of step up and like know these things from the get-go. And yes, I do admit developers nowadays coming out of school are a lot better than our generation when we came out of school. They have a lot more resources to reach out to and a lot more knowledge. You guys are welcome about the industry, right? But there are just certain things that you cannot teach unless you experience through it. You don't know what failure feels like and how to accommodate failure unless you go through it yourself. And we're talking about missing deadlines and still being able to cut corners and still get a shippable product. That only comes from senior developers and their experience.
Yeah, and just like experience is valuable. If you look at a martial arts instructor, let's say you have that like 80-year-old, I've been studying this since I was 6, hand down from my father's father, whatever. So he's been studying for 74 years, martial arts. Let's say he dies. His best student, he's been teaching that student for only 30 years, right? So you're looking at 34 years of experience lost. But now 30 years is great, right? That guy, let's say he dies. He passes down maybe 10 years of experience to his best student. So then that best student is the teacher who only has 10 years of experience. You've lost 54 years of knowledge and experience. You're looking at the dilution of value of that martial art. Because as you keep losing these top level experience, as that information isn't passed down or shared, as you're not letting people actually groom and become seniors, leads, creative directors, etc. If you just keep thinking you're going to find that person in college who's going to be worth that 70 years of martial arts experience that the original master had, it ain't going to happen. You're going to get to a point where you realize we can't make what we used to make. We can't do what we used to do. And we are the cause. We just continue to churn. We've burnt through everybody. And now all we get is eager younglings who only have youngling ability and experience.
Like I think we mentioned this during one of our podcast interviews, Game Dev Unchained. Check that out. Where one of our guests, we were sharing like what the term AAA quality is changing already under our feet. Where AAA quality used to mean the highest production
best,
value, the best. But now I'm encountering younger developers, but also younger gamers attributing it to loot boxes, delays, and just overpaying for the product and overpromises. Yeah. Like, this is where we are right now. Yeah. And that is fastly becoming the truth and becoming the real truth with AAA quality. And
that's actually hilarious.
It's hilarious, but it makes sense, right?
Yeah, because
5-year development, overpromises, kickstarting all this stuff. We're grooming the generation of new gamers to get used to this. And the quality is, of course, it's going to be suffering. So,
Jesus.
Yeah, again, our main topic, Bernie Sanders calling for unionization. These are the issues that are being called upon, and I'm glad that a bigger light is being shined on this. And
I still think
can't wait to see what happens.
You can be profitable as a business and be ethical, especially in 2019. You don't have to outsource everything. You don't have to cut, dump, and kill everything just to show people who don't actually give a shit or actually help you make the thing that you're making money and they can be happy.
Yeah,
I think we gotta start making some fixes, and people need to start investing because they're investing, not investing just so that they can get rich.
All right,
What's the next thing?
Let's move on to our next topic. Surprise mechanics. So obviously this is more in your arena. Yeah, this is more arena. So we are gonna have for other podcasts or show Tuesdays at 11 a.m. Pacific time. We will have Zach Rich, which is from Press Start Legal. He's a lawyer, and we're dedicating a whole podcast to what's going on the legal side of loot boxes. But this is something worth mentioning because it's hilarious. And so I'm going to let Larry take the mic.
So obviously EA kind of was the straw that broke the camel's back in regards to Star Wars Battlefront 2's loot box policies, the numbers behind it, and just the grinds to get the free version equivalent of what you were basically paying to win through the loot box strategies underneath the added on random chance from the gambling mechanics. And so they're under fire right now. International governments striking down and making legislature to prevent loot boxes from even existing in content in their countries. And I don't want to say all thanks to EA, but they most notably were the last ones to kind of like, they were the ones where people put their foot down and said, all right, that's it.
EA is always in the headlines with this shit. Like, they're always the one, like, kind of everybody's like pointing as Darth. It's perfect that they have the Star Wars license because now they can actually put Darth Vader
they're the Siths.
and Sith Lords over there. Well, because let me kind of go over this headline right now, and let's comment on this real quick. Because what Larry is talking about is very fresh. Because they had to talk in front of the UK parliamentary panel. EA loot boxes actually are surprise mechanics and are ethical and fun. So what happened is that representatives from EA and Epic Games, and I'm reading this straight up from the article from Ars Technica. I don't think they're called Ars, right?
I think it's Ars Technica. Not Ars. Ours, like ours, yours, mine, ours.
Anyways, so they said that they're defending the game industry against charges of addictive game mechanics and encouraging of gambling via loot boxes. But at least one of these representatives took issues with the basic premise that randomized item purchases should be labeled as loot boxes in the first place. So I'm just going to read this quote. I'm going to read the whole article.
This misdirection is
that
fantastic.
Is what we look at as surprise mechanics, EA Legal and Government Affairs VP Gary Hopkins told the panel when asked about the ethics of loot boxes. It is important to look at this. If you go to, what your version of Target is. This guy is just calling it in, man. A store that sells a lot of toys and you do a search for surprise toys. You will find that this is something people enjoy. They enjoy surprises. It is something that has been part of toys for years, whether it is Kinder Eggs or Hatchimals or LOL Surprise.
Man, look, a rose by any other name will still smell as sweet, right? You can't just be like, no, we're here to talk about loot boxes. Oh, that doesn't apply to us. These are surprise mechanics. Like, your significant other catches you in bed with someone else.
This is a surprise.
You can't be like, no,
romantic
babe, this isn't cheating.
outing.
No, I'm not cheating. This is just sampling. This is sampling. This is a different name. You're totally wrong.
Oh yeah.
You don't think you're gonna catch hell because you?
Did they think this is their best move? Did they really think that the media and everybody will support them on this?
So here's
if the government is already against them, you have to get the people behind your back.
Yeah.
To protect you.
This is a shit on every single person who has any amount of intelligence and understanding of what loot boxes is, has played it, and has become a victim to it.
Yeah.
It pries in a predatory nature on people who I for sure will like have quick access to funds, don't have a grasp of like the spent. So that I can put on them, but there are people like that who have these addictive gambling natures of like, man, I really want that pulse rifle 308 and oh Lord, please, this is the fastest way to get it. If I can just get it, I can just get it. Spending $3 at a time, thinking like, oh, I probably spent 60, 70. Not knowing that they've spent 90, 100, 200 because they keep just seeing the $3. They're like, I'm already this far in. I may as well spend another $3. I may as well spend another $3. And EA is profiting off of that. Here's the thing. If they were ethical about it, this would be a whole different conversation. If they said, look, yes, loot boxes is a strategy that game developers in the industry are utilizing to supplement the income of how much it costs to make these games and continue to run these games online so that everyone can play it for free. If you buy your Xbox Live subscription, sure, you're online and you're playing. But EA is still a big part of making sure that that game works online so that you can keep paying it, you can keep playing it so that they have servers, so they have new content, they have new updates, and that costs them money. I completely understand why they would want some sort of monthly revenue stream, both for profit but also to make sure that they have sustainability. All they have to do is say, okay, we get it. Right now, we went a little overboard, so let's talk, let's get through this, and then, because we still want to make loot boxes. It's still something that's profitable for us. But what we don't have to do is like be the bully and like shake the people over the toilets, give them a swirly and take their change.
There's a mutual benefit, obviously. There are people buying loot boxes because they do want extra stuff.
There's people who have self-control.
They have self-control. But the problem is right now, there's no regulations on it. There's no ethical way that is really laid out for all companies. Like, let's not make it like gambling. But the issue comes to like, are you shipping me half the game and then you're making me pay the other half? That's the tricky situation right now for the idea of what a loot box is. Because some of the games in the EA camp is like that pay-to-win model. And I'm paying my full $60, but then you're holding back maps. It feels like. But from the developer side, we know you're not holding back maps, right? We are in most of those DLC, if we do it correctly, downloadable content. We are making extra maps because that's one of the biggest arguments when we were working Call of Duty. It's like, oh, you only ship 6 multiplayer maps and now you're making me buy like 4 more. It's like, no, we actually spent the full amount of time to like, because of high production costs, how much it takes to actually make those using the resources that we have. It takes that long, right? Where it gets iffy and muddy is that they're not very clear on the rules. It's like this is the game. You can play it front to back and you can enjoy it fully without having to buy extra. Right? But if you're starting to segment your community that bought into the game and it's like, oh, this is all the fun stuff on the other side of the fence that you have to buy in, then what is the game exactly?
And I think
it gets tricky.
A strong argument that helps relate to that is like EA specifically is saying like, hey, here's this character that you want, because you have to unlock these like extra 8 characters, whatever. We're used to unlockable characters, but I'm used to like the Tekken Street Fighter model. Beat the game with one character and we will give you another character that you haven't played with it yet. Invest 4 hours, right? Beat the game. Cool. Oh, that was fun. And I get this extra character on the same disc. Like, awesome. To then say like, hey, spend 600 hours playing with just this one character to then unlock this other character. And you know what's going to happen over that 600 hours? You know what helps you make that 600 hours, let's say 400 hours, because you don't want to pay? Is having the gear, having the stats that lets your character perform better to earn more experience or rewards or whatever in-game thing you need to help you do better at the game, right? So that's the second gate. And then you're like, or... I mean, just give us $3. You're going to get a good blaster. You're going to get a good this and a 1 in 30 chance of winning that character that you were trying to unlock anyway. And so 1 in 30 chance doesn't mean buy 30. It means each time you buy one, there's a 1 in 30 chance of getting it. So you might end up buying 400. You might end up buying 1. You might end up buying 33. It's not a guarantee. It's just saying the odds of each time you opening that pack there's a 1 in 30 chance of you getting X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
That's the gambling aspect, especially if people have a specific goal. You've designed it in a way where they say the way to get it that doesn't require money requires such an irresponsible amount of time that no sane individual would take that path.
Yeah.
You're forcing me to go this way. It's like the illusion of choice.
Yeah.
Larry, you can spend 90 years, right?
Sure.
Getting this degree.
Yeah.
Or you can pay $800. We're going to give you the book that has everything you actually need, and then we'll give you the degree tomorrow. Yeah. I'm not going to be 900 years is free, Larry, just so you know. We're not crooks.
Yeah.
Spend the 900 years and get it that way. Name a human that's been alive 900 years. It's like that's the illusion of choice part, which is forcing the people to spend, forcing the people into that gambling, and that's the predatory part of it that they're getting in trouble for.
Yeah, every game designer forced to kind of design for loot boxes, and Angel loses its wings. Like I assure you, no game designer likes that aspect, but it's forced on them by publishers or the marketing team. Nobody goes into a game wanting to make that. And we're in that period where everyone's trying to figure that out. Like, how do I remain ethical and design something that makes sense on the business side and on the gameplay side, right? Because I have to say, loot boxes aren't complete trash, right? I see the benefit of buying downloadable content. It started the trend, right? People are obviously buying into it either because they want that extra stuff to make them a little better or at least stand apart. That's why I think cosmetics is the best type of loot boxes.
There's no power gate.
There's no power gate, But where it gets tricky is there is no gates. Like you said, they're like anybody, like EA, they're just going completely bonkers with every game that they release and really just piecemealing their game to their customer. And it's hurting the business. And it's getting all the way to legislation at this point. Why can't... And I feel like it's a bit lazy, to be honest, to go in front of Congress or whatever they call it over there, right? In UK, that's like, first of all, I can't believe he quoted himself. It's like, what's your equivalent of Target over here? Wherever you buy toys. It's like, dude, you're fucking research, dude. Anyways, was standing in front of that Senate and kind of like trying to bait and switch what the idea of loot boxes are by calling it surprise mechanics. Well, do it the old-fashioned way. Spend some money on lobbyists and get what you want. For me to see that happening is like, you guys are just so cheap and so unprepared to actually argue your point. This is just coming off as lazy, being a big corporation. Right?
For me, it's disrespectful.
It's disrespectful.
I see the disrespect first because they're going to Parliament. Who are like, these people are responsiple for
the power
millions of people, right?
This is where corporation is like feeling the ego, and
they're going in there with Versace shirts, hamburger meat, chest hair hanging out, like
whatever you
mechanics. This is totally like cocaine cowboys, drug lord type of behavior, in my opinion. They don't want to back down on selling their drugs, right? Like, to me, when I start thinking about loot box and the gaming experience between extorting the people this way. It's just like all the drug dealers I used to know when I grew up, like inner city streets back in the day when I was a kid, and seeing how they treated people, where it was like, sure, this first thing is free, right? Everyone knows that the first thing is free, and then it's like, oh, now you're addicted to my product. Now I can leverage you. Now I can extort you. Now, oh, you're trying to get off? Here, take another free one. Look, I promise you, it's okay. Just make sure you want to stop. Oh, you don't want to stop? Keep coming back to me. Who's been taking care of you all this time? I'm gonna get profit off of fucking your life up. It's that same kind of thinking that I see behind the loot box. It's a digital item, right? It doesn't cost them much to produce it, and they're just copy pasting it into people's accounts. There's no stock, there's no warehouse, there's no shipping costs or none of that.
It's just megabits,
and it's selling like crazy because there is a psychological, emotional, and addictive attachment to it that people are just like buying it like crazy, much like a drug. So these people don't want to stop selling drugs because they see how lucrative it is. They're doing everything they possibly can to not have to change or regulate how they're selling drugs. I literally, and I will stand on a box and say that I'm starting to equate that kind of sales to like, you're selling people drugs.
It is.
You're treating them just like they're a junkie and you're the dealer.
It's like, it's exactly gambling. And I'm glad the government is. Most people are against that, but who else is fighting on the consumer side? Really, right? The game industry is kind of like the Wild West right now. Like, there's really no one paying attention to it on any fronts. It's always been looked at as a child's toy.
Yeah.
But we have less regulations than toy industry, right? But that's the funny part. So we're finally getting noticed, and I think a lot of it is because of Fortnite. On a global scale, on the international scale, of like, this is an industry that everybody needs to pay attention to.
Yeah.
Facebook already got into it. Google, every major tech company is getting into it. Everybody wants a piece of it.
Yep.
This is an industry that everybody needs to pay attention to. And the loot boxes is actually a great arena for a lot of these people to look at, because it really helps formulate the game players, but also the game developers.
Yeah.
Like, we're sick of actually have to design around that.
Yeah.
The mandate that goes into game design and making a fun game is vastly changing and shifting towards that. It's like, how do we make money every day?
Make it fun enough that they don't quit before the addiction hook sets
and this
in.
a lot of it is a mix of the mobile industry doing this for a long time, but the mobile industry, the reason why a lot of these aren't attacking those guys is because
99 cents.
There's a detachment, and there's like a low cost, and it's not like super addictive.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I have to say, like, some of those games go really deep, and people do spend huge money off. Of course, there's a reason why. But I feel like no one's picking on those guys for some reason. I don't know what it is exactly. They go straight to EA, but we know the mobile industry does this way crazier.
Well, I think the barrier of acceptance for me personally has always been, I'm getting this mobile game for free or for 99 cents. I'm pretty sure it costs these people a considerable amount of money to make the game. So I don't feel bad that they're asking me to spend another 99 cents here and there or whatever. And I usually have self-control, so I don't have problems. But there's a lot of backlash from people like, hey, I just gave you $60 for this game, and I'm not even getting $60 of value, because in order for me to do the things for free, I'm getting my ass whooped. Like, hands down, because other people who were also in my spot just put $10 up and got a power jump, and they're in the same games as me. It's an unequal playing field. Therefore, me just spending $60 means that I'm actually not playing the same game as everyone else. I've wasted my money, or I have to spend more money. So for me, like, the acceptance has always been like, I paid $1 for this mobile game. It's worth maybe another $5. So sure, I'll spend $5. I don't feel bad. I spent $60, and then now you're hitting me with that mobile game freemium strategy of like, keep buying these things, keep buying these things, keep buying me these things. It's a harder sell for me personally. That's where I start to get upset.
Well, we are almost at an hour already. We had another topic, but we'll save it for tomorrow. Yeah. But this is a perfect opportunity. If you like what you're seeing, be sure to visit us on our website. Go to our YouTube account if you missed past episodes. If you want to subscribe to Twitch, you can do that now. We're a Twitch affiliate. Those $5 that you get if you're a Twitch or a Prime Amazon Prime member, it's just sitting there, right? Everybody gets $5. They can support their favorite Twitchers. What's up? And that helps us a long way.
Yeah, and you know what? Shout out to anybody if we're already your favorite Twitcher. How about
What's
that?
up?
Are we anybody's favorite yet? If so, thank you for being a part of this and helping us get it going.
Aside from that, if you want to directly help us, and if you want Games Recap in audio form so you can take with you on your daily commute, you know, we would love to turn this into a podcast. It's just very costly, as you can imagine. 20 episodes per month, right?
Yeah.
Every daily.
The gas for me to get here every day.
Yes, we are actually 12 patrons away, Larry, about hitting that goal. So if you want to support us, go to our patreon.com/BlueChamps, drop $1 or more to then make this officially a podcast. Now, of course, you can just check us on YouTube or continue watching on Twitch.
Every little bit helps, and any bit is appreciated. And I guess that's pun intended because we're on Twitch.
Yeah.
But I didn't mean it.
Well, there we go.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. So anyways, Larry's going to see us out.
Yeah, you know, like when you go to the barbershop, you take your hat off and get a cut.
Yeah.
When you put your hat back on, consider yourselves recapped.
Yeah. And stay right on. We're going to have another show coming up, Games Go Online, with our awesome friend, Colin Fogel.
All right, Colin.